Welcome to Vishal and Company, where Equity Guru's own Vishal Tura, Taku Ndachena, Colin Botrell, and Maddie Grace examine the week's financial events in real terms, bringing the esoteric blur of public market activity into sharp focus. So come in, sit down, put your feet up, and enjoy.
Good to go, or?
Is it working?
Sweet. Just remember to post a link too, dude. I think some people are. Thank you. Okay.
Start talking now. Restart. Hello. Okay. Hello again. Welcome to this week's edition of Vishal and Company. This week, Vishal is going to discuss what nobody is talking about with the Elon Musk buying Bitcoin discussion, WallStreetBets setting their eyes on cannabis, and why the real economy's continued deterioration is good for the stock market. TK is going to cover what's what in the real economy and why it's looking so grim. And last but never least, we have Galen here to jump in with commentary and yell about Elon Musk along the way. I am the resident not finance person to ask questions and keep these guys in check when or if they start making not a lot of sense for my non-industry friends tuning in. All right, Vishal, all yours.
All right. Thank you, guys. Well, thank you, Maddie. So for the equity markets, not really the story this week. We've just had 4 days of range here on the S&P, on the NASDAQ, and also on the Dow. But the story has been Bitcoin, which has made new record highs and is close to touching 50K per coin, currently trading at $47,415. Well, just jumped down a bit there, but the story really can be summed up here. We talked about this last week with Elon Musk and Gene Simmons, actually. Gene Simmons, Snoop Dogg, now Lindsay Lohan's pumping cryptos too. But a lot of celebrities were praising Dogecoin, and now they've all turned their direction to Bitcoin. And, I'm not sure if you guys have heard that news, but Bitcoin did spend $1.5 billion on Bitcoin, and it's been making its rounds, right? It's a big story. You have a big corporation buying $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. And a few things I want to talk about, because a lot of things I think that the financial media is covering doesn't necessarily reflect what's on their SEC filing. So the first thing, and I think, Galen, you'll probably have some comments about this. This is Tesla's research and development expenses going back to 2010. Again, spent $1.5 billion buying Bitcoin, but their research and development for all of 2020 annually came out $1.49 billion. So, a lot of comments about them spending more money acquiring a cryptocurrency rather than spending money trying to increase, their business, which is producing vehicles. Anyone have comments about that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I heard about that. Yep.
Yeah, true.
Mm.
It kind of reminds me of misuse of shareholders' money. Nobody.
TK, you had something to say?
I think it's misuse of shareholders' money.
Misuse of shareholder money.
If I was invested in Tesla,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna be a little bit optimistic. Usually, I'm the pessimist when it comes to Elon and his company, but I think today we have the man they talk about on the board meetings, Galen. But like, I was holding Tesla for its car company, its solar stuff, and
Right.
all that. I would be concerned if you're spending most of your capital expenditures on not even the machinery, the equipment, the land, property, etc., and the research to continue your tech, get the more lithium batteries, more efficiently. Yes, you're buying your Bitcoin. You're buying, as of now, a speculative asset. As of now, I would be concerned. I would definitely be concerned.
Okay.
I'm waiting to see what Kathy Wood, who's one of the largest shareholders in Tesla. What she's gonna say about she's probably gonna say it's the greatest thing that she's a Bitcoin fan as well. So, but I would be pretty concerned if I was a shareholder seeing the discrepancy between where the interests of the companies are, and yeah, it's my view on that. I think it's Galen. The first thing when I met Galen, he said to me was, we're talking about Elon as usual. He says to me, he's really dangling a piece of meat in front of us, and we're all falling for it. And Galen, this is the funniest part. He said, "I'm not." And I was like, "No, I completely get what you're saying. It's like, it just makes no sense how he's gone so far into this without anything happening." And yeah. Very true.
As mentioned.
True. The car recall.
Right.
Yeah. Running out of fuel. Mm. Mm.
Okay.
Yeah. True. It's kind
I'm just getting.
of hand in hand with his insurance play, where he wanted to get into insurance. I don't know if he has.
Yeah.
I didn't check up on that as well.
Yeah.
But he wanted to issue car insurance to people who buy the car, which is basically what Wells Fargo did in 2016, and they got in trouble for the upselling, and cross-selling stuff. And he, of all people to criticize, he says people like Warren Buffett don't understand insurance, especially car insurance. Warren Buffett owns Geico, one of the best auto car insurance companies in the world. And I mean, like, you're trying to compete with, a man who has that amount of capital for all these extravagant things you're trying to do under one company. And eventually, some of those business lines won't be productive.
Yeah.
And the one that is guaranteed to be the lowest margin producer is going to be the auto manufacturer.
Yeah.
And you need to spend as much money as possible, constantly researching, upgrading your plants, the gigafactories. You have to constantly buy into the engineers, and that's expensive. But he has the money to spend on $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. It kind of shows you that the return on capital right now in Tesla is low on the automobile and the energy sector, that he had to find somewhere else to put that cash outside of like government treasuries and that kind of stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just gotta intervene here. I'm getting some messages from some of our viewers here that you're muted on YouTube. Yeah, when you're muted on YouTube. Yeah. So some people missed your comments, man, about Tesla.
Oh. We have to
Well,
start again.
I just want to play a bit of the devil's advocate here. People who've been following my work on Market Moment and also, who've been listening to our show, I've talked about the currency war and why you want to be out of fiat currency per se, right? So this is Tesla's SEC filing. I know, like a lot of the media was mentioning how Tesla is using Bitcoin now as a currency and for transactions. But I took a read. I looked at Tesla's SEC filings, and I bet a lot of people saw a lot of the gold bugs did as well. And these are a few comments that came out that I want to direct people's attention to. So, in quote, in January 2021, we updated our investment policy to provide us with more flexibility to further diversify and maximize returns on our cash that is not required to maintain adequate operating liquidity. As part of the policy, which was duly approved by the audit committee of our board of directors, we may invest a portion of such cash in certain alternative reserve assets, including digital assets, gold bullion, gold exchange traded funds, and other assets as specified in the future. And, when I read that, I sort of jumped for joy in a bit because it's something, again, I've been mentioning, right? And it all comes down to this chart, the US dollar chart, and the currency war that we are seeing with all the monetary policy and the fiscal policy. Central banks want a weaker currency in order to boost inflation and exports, right? We talked about the European Union, where the ECB has been trying to increase their asset purchasing program in a way to try to, weaken the euro, but it just hasn't happened because the dollar has been weakening much faster. And in this currency world, if the dollar is going down, then an opposing currency, in this case the euro, would be appreciating. And I think a lot of smart investors, I guess, have sort of seen that this is going to continue, right? We're likely going to go to negative interest rates because if the European Central Bank cannot weaken their euro, and they've been printing money, they've already been, doing quantitative easing, their asset purchasing program is very crazy. They're already at negative interest rates. What do you do, right? The only option is you cut your interest rates further, deeper into the negative. And that's the currency war. I think you're going to see a lot of central banks doing this. What I find very interesting is actually Australia, England, and Canada. Australia and England have actually done micro cuts because they did not want to go negative. So they're basically at 0.10 or 0 in some cases. And basically negative rates is next. And in Canada's front, the Canadian dollar has actually been getting stronger because, well, not only because the US dollar is weakening, but also because of oil, which is popping. And oil is one of the commodities. Oil is, there's a positive correlation between oil and the Canadian loonie and also the Norwegian krona and the Russian ruble, which are basically commodity-backed currencies, as people call it. So in Canada's situation, how are they going to weaken their currency? I think it's going to be interesting with interest rates cuts, but with commodity prices, specifically oil, going higher. So I think this is the whole currency war dynamics that I've sort of been talking about and why I've been following the currencies and specifically this dollar chart. And, we mentioned this in the past too, but even the Chinese yuan, right? The CCP, the People's Bank of China, generally wants a weaker yuan, but the yuan has been appreciating, has been getting stronger. due to a weaker dollar. So again, when I read that, I was like, oh, holy cow, is Tesla doing basically what I've been suggesting and what a lot of other people suggest? And will they actually be buying gold bullion or gold ETFs down the line? And if that's the case, then I think it has a lot more to do with the dollar chart rather than these assets being held for for transactions, right? And I think cryptos are a way out of fiat because, well, technically they aren't a fiat, so it is a way to get out of fiat currency, and that's sort of been my base case scenario and why I've been bullish on the cryptos, Ethereum and Bitcoin generally. But I, to be honest, I like them all, right? I think it's good to be in Ripple as well, Stellar, not necessarily because you're going to be using them as transaction, but it's a way to get out of fiat currencies because we know what central banks are going to be doing due to all the monetary and fiscal policy.
But the problem is we won't get out of. I'm glad I can actually be heard now. And I apologize for that. Sometimes this computer program resets itself, and I get surprised by it periodically. Now, the reason this whole Bitcoin thing is taking off, and we're all sort of excited about cryptocurrency, is partially because of the ministrations of individuals like Elon Musk. Yeah. There's still a lot to be said about the stability of these items. Yeah. And where, again, are they going to be controlled? And because I know you missed what I said earlier on, we've gone from having a fiat currency controlled by government states to corporate bodies. Mm. How is that different, and how is that going to be better than another system? Right? Again, Elon Musk is operating a car manufacturing business that seems to be exactly focused on investments. Yeah. Right? And again, he's shielding himself from 2021's competition. The only reason why I'm doing this again and reiterating it so loudly is because I didn't get heard the first time. You guys got to have the ear-blistering scream, but no one else did. The reason he's doing this is because he knows 2021 is going to kick him right in the gut. All the competition that has not been able to come to the table will. They have the manufacturing base, they have the distribution networks, and they don't need to put plug-in stations everywhere. Mm. Right? There's a lot of stuff that these guys are going to be entering into an industry that he won't be able to compete with. So he has, as he has always done, shifted gears to go, hey, look at this smoke over here.
Yeah.
Well, now, we can say that it is, as I said before, and the only reason why I'm repeating this, that he is an executive of a company in a time when money is cheap, and sure, why not go get it? But on the other side of the coin, when is it irresponsible to grab money you don't need?
Mm-hmm. Mm. And what are you doing with it? Yeah. I feel like the premise of hedging either inflation or foreign exchange fluctuations is completely false. Most of their business is done globally.
Yes, and I can understand that. Investments to cover currency exchanges and all that kind of stuff, sure. Yeah. But when it becomes a fucking Morgan Stanley, then what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. It's like what is, that's why I'm like, I think as a shareholder who's in this, people like Cathie Wood, those great investors should come out and say, okay, you have this stockpile of cash, you're able to raise a lot of cash. What are you actually doing now to match the growth rate that the upper car company that people are predicting are going to be doing? Because law of economics, a car manufacturer has a certain limit. People are not buying cars constantly throughout the business cycle, and this kind of industry is so, the margins are so thin that it's like operational leverage. One small shift in demand side for their demand, they don't have that price flexibility to continue to increase the prices. People stop buying the car, and in that essence, that problem, that handicap, does not allow him to continue to grow at the pace that the stock has gone so far. And diversifying is always an option, but at this point, if he doesn't use his currency, which is the stock in this situation, to do productive things, I feel like he's actually destroying value and not creating it by going into stuff like Bitcoin or treasuries. I rather not get paid dividends. I know that people think how most shareholders want to go, but I rather he actually invest in stuff that increases the intrinsic value over time, rather than just polishing up the balance sheet for analysts. And that's what I see this play as. Hey, I talked about this so much, and now I'm going to polish up the balance sheet a little bit by putting in Bitcoin and looking all techy. But everything else.
Because where's his batteries at?
Yeah, it's like all these other things.
Oh, we forgot to talk about that stuff. But look at the Bitcoin.
Galen, what you said at the beginning is completely true. I wish people heard. But
damn that guy. Sorry.
Well, don't worry. We'll be talking about it every. We'll be talking about this next week as well with the crypto stuff, because maybe next week we pass 50K over on Bitcoin. But I just want to quickly direct our conversation now to the other big sort of news, and that was the cannabis stocks. So not sure if you guys saw this, but this week the most discussed tickers were Sundial, Tilray, and Aphria, and I'm talking about the WallStreetBets forum. We've been tracking this over on our Equity Guru Discord trading room. Before it was GameStop, BlackBerry, AMC, and now a lot of the cannabis producers have the top 3 spots now. And it was the guys over on WallStreetBets were focusing on the pending merger between Tilray and Aphria, but you can see here Sundial was actually the hottest, and it's something that we talked about, I want to say, before the WallStreetBets guys, because over on our trading channel, we trade market structure patterns, and Sundial actually met the requirements of EG's reversal setups. Not just Sundial, but there was tons of cannabis charts that we even traded on way back in the day. Village Farms, another one, which we got in at 720, and we did actually make new highs a few days ago. Holy crap, I didn't even talk about that. But we did make new highs there on Village Farms. We were looking at Aphria in the past. But basically, this is where I find the power of technicals and market structure patterns. They can sort of tell us when these breakouts are about to occur. And then I generally see that, sorry, not Elon Musk, but marijuana. But then we generally see, the retail guys and then the media covering these moves basically after they sort of happen. But basically the big story now, well, I think you saw that now when you saw Sundial, Tilray. I mean, they've had big drops, right? Yesterday we had a huge drop. I think Tilray had its largest drop ever, basically posted yesterday. So a lot of these did sell off, and it goes back now to the whole GameStop thing as well. A lot of analysts were saying the reason why GameStop and BlackBerry and AMC fell is because the fundamentals were finally
don't exist. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Well, the fundamentals were finally being priced in, and on the cannabis side, we do have that fundamental on the U.S. side, right? We do have the Senate Democrats. They did mention on February 1st, so just a few weeks ago.
But we did have some spillover to the Canadian companies, which I think some of the investors weren't necessarily aware that any legalization that happens in the United States most likely won't impact Canadian producers.
Well, there we go. You just said it. That's the thing, right? So we do have the U.S. side there, and we've talked about the MSOs in the U.S. side. So TrueLeaf, Cresco, Green Thumb, Curaleaf, all making breakouts and all-time record highs on the U.S. side, but also the Canadian sides are moving. And this is what an analyst had to say. We believe the rally in Canadian names is mostly driven by retail traders, maybe fueled by Robinhood and Reddit. That's really piling into the Canadian cannabis names in particular. I'm not going to say it's a GameStop type of case, but the Canadian rally is not entirely based on fundamentals. But when we talk up to clients, we tell them to be careful trying to short these Canadian names, because you know what happened with GameStop on. So basically, what they're saying is that, yes, these Canadian stocks are moving. A few other ones that we played that if you do check out the article, HMMJ, Chronos, but we were looking at these stuff a few back in November and in the early weeks of January. But essentially, there's no fundamental basis, right? The Canadian cannabis stocks are not met with corresponding fundamentals, but the charts did show breakouts a while back.
Oh, yeah.
So are we going to?
Supreme has got a big kick in the pants. They're heading right up, and it's just like, what happened?
True.
Yeah.
Honestly,
So
this kind of sorry, Michelle, to
go for it.
eat ahead, but I think it just exemplifies what is wrong with the market right now. I choose wrong to be as strong as possible because people are now, we have idle time. A lot of people have idle time. You tend to forget that the broader economy is in the collapse. The Canadian GDP is decreasing, the unemployment is up, stuff like that is happening outside of our view. But it's, we are stuck to our screens most of the time. And what people are doing is buying meme stocks and trying to get rich fast. And I mean, even Trudeau came out this week saying the benefits are still there. You don't have to pay off some of this and that, keeping more money in people's hands to continue pumping this thing as long as it goes. We'll get into the junk bond thing. I want to talk about that more in detail at the end. But yeah, it's kind of showing you, if I am investing now, but I would really watch what I'm doing.
Don't be following those trends.
Yeah, I would not follow it. I mean, it's a game theory thing for them. It's the game of chicken. Who's gonna let go first?
Yeah.
Who's gonna make the prisoner's dilemma?
Well, see, the problem is on those formats, it's very much a pyramid scheme in the sense, and then changes by virtue of the consumer base or the client base that these things have, that they become market makers with very definitive thought leaders.
Yeah.
And those definitive thought leaders are the ones that are the first in and the first out. They're the ones making the money. Everybody else is either making a little bit, but most of them are getting soaked because they have no clue, right?
No clue. True. And I've had so many conversations the last month where people have come to me and said, "Oh, I just got my student loan. What should I buy into?" And all this, and I'm like, "Oh,
An education?"
Yeah, I'm like, "Oh my God, what are you going on about?" It is the emphasis of a market that is too easy to make money in. So I know I don't want to be the rainmaker again and continue with the same warning, but do not mistake a bull market for genius.
Yeah.
Test yourself when the market is down. What kind of psychological stuff happens in those moments? I just thought I should. It's just this kind of stuff happening. These little bubbles forming in different asset classes. People can blame social media, but this has always happened. I don't want to go into, stuff from back then, but the tulip mania is the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
We had no internet in the tulip mania,
Nope.
but people still pushed prices up because they had the expectation that some other idiot was going to buy at a higher price.
Right.
And that's essentially what's happening in a lot of these asset classes.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's probably one of the few times where Wall Street is underperforming for long stretches of time compared to retail investors. So their only alternative, Wall Street, is to say, it's a bubble. We don't understand what these guys are doing. They're not following fundamentals, and we won't invest. But on the back of that, most of them are still making $2 million per year, just getting management fees and stuff like that.
Well, no, of course, but I mean, the thing is too is they do have a bit of a point, right? I mean, that there isn't any fundamentals to a lot of this stuff that these guys are doing, and oh God, I can't believe I completely lost my train of thought there.
Oh no, I'm good.
It's in the end that these movements are not necessarily democratizing. Okay. Oh, there we go. That's it. This is a whole new economy that we're seeing right now. One with meme-driven, culturally pop icon. We're going to believe thousands of years from now you're going to be a god. So I'm going to pay you everything I got right now because I believe so much in you. And that's a huge shift. That's a huge shift. Now, I think it's wrong. I think it bases too much because if you look just at the example that we were thinking we were going to be flying cars by the year 1980, by when we were in the 1950s, right? We have no fucking clue what kind of trust and confidence we're doing when we're putting into these people, and the money that they have and then the money that they use so drastically distort the system that we have right now. It may function, but I don't think it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
And as much as I bitch about Mr. Musk and how he needs to have his little thing slapped, he may never have it. He could just beat me right out, and I'll just watch in the background as a bitter old man and see the whole world pass me by.
Watch him take it and move and not get a punishment for it. I think that's kind of what we kind of have to realize with ourselves is, people are getting in because they're kind of seeing. It's hard to see your neighbor make 20%, 30%, 40% in 3 days, and you sit there in your safe index fund with bonds and bonds are kind of doing the same thing. They're sitting there with a safe index, putting in $20 a month, whilst Johnny Boy is making 6,000% on Tesla calls. It's hard to look at that and not sit back and say, this might be overheated. I might need to take a step. It's the psychology behind it is so difficult. It's like a gambler who loves to gamble, and you're not going to stop me just because you tell me I'm gambling. Yeah. I know I'm speculating. I'm going to continue to do it. That's kind of where we're at now.
Maddie, do we have some time for TK to talk about the real
Absolutely.
Economy? We do? Okay.
A quick overview of the disaster.
I'm going to set you up here quickly. Jobless claims worse than expected. Jobless claims worse than expected. U.S. consumer sentiment unexpectedly falls to a 6-month low. UK junk bonds yield drop below 4% for the first time ever. What's going on?
V-shaped recovery? Sorry. Damn!
Basically, it's not all over. That's the answer to that. I think we kind of do forget we are, in a recession. The junk bond index I like looking at is the ICA Bank of America U.S. High Yield Index.
Yeah,
that's the one they're probably talking about. That's below 4%. And quick rundown of the junk bond for most people who might not know, junk bonds are just it's in the name, really terrible bonds of really speculative companies. Tesla is actually a junk bond, anyways. These companies issue bonds at high interest rates because the risk of default is higher. Mm-hmm. And most of the time they do put up collateral, which is through assets or whatever covenants that they put through. And it's harder for them to raise money in the bond market. So it's more expensive for them. But the junk bond index decreasing to below 3-4% means cheap money has made it easier for these companies to issue really bad debt. And the more they decrease, the easier it is for these companies that might not even be profitable to issue these bonds. And the alarming thing is a lot of them are issuing the bonds and then using those bonds to pay dividends or pay other interest that they have in their balance sheet, which means they're not actually funding operations through day-to-day operations. They're just going into the market, issuing bonds and putting it back into bondholders' hands. And this is somewhat similar to the repo market in 2019, where short repo market are these short-term bonds that corporations use to fund day-to-day working capital stuff. And if the bond market is liquid, you can continue to recycle and go through bonds quickly if the Fed continues to put money in the economy. But once that stops, there could be mass bankruptcies in a lot of these junk bond companies. Mm-hmm. And if these companies continue to issue these large debt piles, it kind of reduces consumer confidence. And that's why there's business confidence. And that's why at the same time the index is down, the small business confidence index is also at its lowest since May, which is in May. Since May, which are kind of all signs of a declining economy. But it's easy to forget that because the stock market is up 5% year to date and nobody is paying attention to bonds. There's no point of buying bonds at this point if you're able to, make more yields on corporate bonds and stuff like that.
I got a question for you, TK.
Equities. Yeah.
So we know the Fed's been buying junk bonds, right? They've been buying JNK and HYG, and we've known this for like a year. What role do you think, we've been told here that it's these funds that are buying junk bonds, right? But could it be that the biggest volume is actually coming from the Federal Reserve, buying JNK, HYG, and thereby, making the yield drop?
I think so. I think most of the buying power is coming from the Fed, even if they use their reserve banks to do it. Majority of the buying, and I don't know if they're buying individual or they're buying indexes. The last I heard is they were buying indexes of junk bonds, which hold the junk bonds, and in essence they're still buying at that demand. But the biggest issue here is once that money stops, there's going to be a lot of defaults. It's like a domino effect. These companies will default on their payments. The underwriters will have to put up collateral, which is usually the banks. These banks will get more strict with the loan policies that they have, destroying the deposits for customers. Customers' deposits are destroyed because the banks can't put up that cash.
And then look at that now. If you're destroying the person's deposits, and we've now told everybody in the way that they've lived their life is by taking all of their money now and dumping in the stock market, which has been doing crazy, and we've having such a great time with it. So now, as I've always thought, they're going to have to pull their money out of the market so they can buy their bread. And when they do that, what's going to happen?
The market will topple over. People start selling out more at a loss. Companies won't have money, won't be able to raise money through stock, making them fire people because they can't keep up their payment. It's like
inflation's going to go through the roof.
And that's why I'm like, it's great. You can buy corporate bonds a little cheaper. Companies can issue a little bit more debt. It's productive. But now it depends who is buying the bonds that are going to come out in the next few months and who is issuing. Bonds is it companies who really need it, who are actually doing something, or companies who are just kind of
Tesla? Sorry,
using it for a share.
It's a Tourette syndrome thing. Sorry, guys.
Tesla actually has junk bonds. If regulators and the credit rating agencies are saying this is an under investment grade company, why are people buying it? Because it has an 8% yield. But I think the underlying economy might not be as great or recover as quickly as we might think, and people have known that for a while. But it's so easy to forget it when you're making a compounded return of 20-30% in the market by absolutely doing nothing. And it's hard to kind of look back at that and say, oh yeah, you know what, maybe things are not going as great. But I do want to say, being the Fed chair or the central bank, a central banker, making those kind of macro choices is so difficult, not knowing what micro effects are going to happen. And even if something goes wrong, you can never say to them, oh, you made a mistake here, because there's no right answer.
They'll never admit a mistake if you're a central banker.
It's like, it's so undemocratic for them to be like, yeah, you know what, I messed up.
Well, look at what the Europeans and the Japanese are saying, right? They're like, our policies on negative rates and money printing didn't fail. It's just that we didn't cut rates deep into the negative enough, and we haven't printed enough money, right?
Look at the opposite of what you
on that note, I'm going to end us off there. I think that seems like a good, safe place to close us out this week. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Bye, everyone. Bye.